What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Unplugged, where we talk about everything life, music, and ministry. I'm your host, Brent Linsing. Welcome to the show. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Unplugged. My name is Brent Linsing. I'm super excited to be your host and to kind of break out this pilot episode, just kind of alone by myself, getting everything situated. It's been a long time coming for this particular podcast. Super excited. Just kind of wanted to talk a little bit tonight about where I'm from, who I am, where I came from, where I am now, some of the things that I do on a regular basis, and then kind of go from there. Kind of wanted to start to let everybody know kind of what this podcast is going to be about. We're going to be talking a lot about life, music, and ministry. So that is the goal of this particular podcast. Now, of course, there will be other side conversations, I'm sure, especially when we have some cool guests on. I already have a few really unique conversations planned with some really unique people. Great people. Super excited about those upcoming episodes. But this episode is really just for kind of just for some narrative and some context on who I am and where I'm from. Now, as I said in the beginning, my name is Brent Linsing. I am 25 years old, and I'm originally from a little town in East Texas called Livingston, Texas. Population like 5,600. It's a pretty small town. If you've been in and around Livingston, it's a really cool culture, really cool atmosphere. It's a just small town, East Texas. So Bible Belt town. You grew up there pretty much all my life. I grew up in a neighbor town about 15 minutes away when I was born up until, 5th grade. So I was 9 or 10, something like that. And then moved to Livingston, which is about 15 minutes away, and then spent the rest of my childhood there until I graduated high school. It was great. Grew up going to church. Grew up in church. My great-granddad had founded the church that I grew up in. And so it was a really unique position to be in because it was it was cool, and having great granddad as someone who was he was our pastor, my pastor, but just had a lot of wisdom, had a lot of experience. And then my grandparents were in church, and my parents were in church. Kind of just grew up in this thing, and very blessed to have done that. Just grew up around people that really cared. Had a great family growing up. Still have a great family. While my great-grandparents have passed away and some of my grandparents have passed away, still have my family, my parents, and some of my grandparents. And so just very blessed to have my family around me. But when I was 18, I graduated high school there in Livingston and then moved off to Lake Charles, Louisiana, to go to a college called McNeese State University. So all my Poke friends out there, go Pokes. Super excited and blessed with that opportunity when I was 18. A couple months, I graduated in May, and then by the end of July, I was moved in here in Lake Charles, and then went to college here a couple years. Graduated with my degree in my bachelor's degree in music education. I studied percussion throughout college and just the music side, but also the education side. And then got out when I was, that was December of 2021, got out. And then took a semester to kind of get my bearings. I graduated in December, so it's kind of halfway through the year. So for any educators out there, you kind of know where I'm going with this. You graduate halfway, throughout the year, I guess. If you're a December grad, then not many jobs are open till that following August. So I waited that semester and then got a job working as a music instructor and music teacher, praise and worship music instructor at a private Christian school. So did that for a year, and then After that, I and I'm kind of zooming through this pretty quick, so there's a lot of background information that I'm kind of missing here. Hopefully, I'll get to that here in a second. But after that, I got a job as a fourth grade STEM teacher, so kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum a little bit, I guess. Got a job as a fourth grade STEM teacher at a city here in North Lake at a school here in North Lake Charles, and that is where I currently am now. Now, give some background knowledge. In 2017, when I moved to Louisiana, I was grew up going to church. Then for a little bit, kind of fell away just for a little bit, for a year or two, and then in 2019, I found out about a church that my pastor's wife had originally grew up in Moss Bluff, Louisiana, which is right north of Lake Charles. So went to that. My brother had graduated high school back in Livingston at that time, and so he was coming to McNeese as well and coming to live with me. And so in August of 2019, we made our way over to MBP Church, Moss Bluff Pentecostal Church in Moss Bluff, Louisiana, right north of Lake Charles. And kind of from then on, it was a running joke because I'm a Texan at heart. I'm a very, very proud Texan. And my goal after I got out of college was to move straight back to Texas. And my brother, he loved it over here, and he said, I'm never moving away from Moss Bluff. I love it. And God has a sense of humor, because as soon as I graduated, we had COVID had happened kind of in that time period, and we had some hurricanes that ended up absolutely destroying Lake Charles. We had two back-to-back hurricanes within like 6 weeks of each other in August of 2020. So during COVID and everything that happened, and my brother, we ended up moving back to Texas for like 6 months just because we didn't have an apartment to come back to in Louisiana. And I ended up moving back to Louisiana to finish up my undergrad degree. My brother stayed in Texas, and nothing changed. So I was determined to get back to Texas and stay in Texas, and my brother Brandon was determined to stay in Louisiana. And then God has a sense of humor, so we ended up flip-flopping those plans a little bit, and he stayed in Texas and I stayed in Louisiana. But it was for the best reason. In 2019, I met at that time was just a friend when we started coming to MBP Church, and kind of on and off, we started dating a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. And then when I moved back to finish up my undergrad degree, dated a little bit, and then we went on a hyphen retreat, and we ended up getting together. And let's see, from the time we got together, August 1st of 2022, Lindsay and I started dating. By December 2nd of the same year, we were engaged, and then June 2nd of 2023, we were married. So crazy whirlwind of life within the past year and a half. So I ended up staying in Louisiana. I met my wife here. Didn't know that she was going to be my wife at the time, but God's really, really blessed me and her, and super, super excited to have Lindsay in my life. She's the absolute best wife on the planet. She's the most anointed, talented person that I know, and she keeps me on my toes. And so that's I need it. I definitely need it. But and so that's kind of a quick backstory as to where I came from, kind of where I'm at right now. And I guess what I wanted to discuss as well on this podcast is kind of where we're going. Now, like I said, this podcast is going to be aimed towards just life music ministry. When coming up with the title, I was talking to my wife about this and a couple friends there at the church. And I really wanted to call it Unplugged, because I think a lot of times we get into this like routine mode of, I don't want to use the word mundanity, but I think that's appropriate, I guess. Is in, we go to church on Sundays and Wednesdays and Sundays and Wednesdays. And, you may do serve activities in your church. But sometimes it's, you're going to church, you're hearing a message, you're hearing a message, you're hearing a message, you're hearing a message. And that's fantastic. And that is totally the will of God. But, sometimes we fail to just try to live life the way God intended it for it to be lived. And that's, reaching the world on a daily basis, and, breaking bread with people and talking about things that, you may not necessarily, they may just not come up at church, just having some cool life experiences to share with people, and, just kind of in a broken down, stripped down format, other than just what happens at church. And obviously that is well and good. That is totally the will of God, to go to church and to talk about the Bible at church. But it's also the will of God to talk about it outside of church as well. And so I feel like this podcast is gonna help some people in just getting outside of the normal mundane routines of life. And hopefully this will bless you on your way to work. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're at school, maybe you're on a commute, whatever the case may be. Hopefully this will give you some insight to not only what I'm doing, what our guests will be doing, but just kind of how this, how God's willing to help you and meet you at the point of your need as well. And hopefully this podcast will be a good source of information or just encouragement that you can lean on, because we all need that, especially in the world we live in today. It is wild out there. So super excited to dive into what we're doing here. And this is just kind of an intro to what Unplugged is going to be. Now, like I said earlier, we're going to have some really, really great guests on that are have been super generous in accepting the offer to be on this podcast. And hopefully through their experiences, through my experiences, we'll have some conversations that's really going to bless you. That is my hope for this podcast. It's just been one of those things God's been dealing with me about over the past couple months, just trying to get this thing off the ground. Now, also something I failed to mention, I actually, when I stayed in Louisiana after college and everything, at that time I was still single, wasn't dating my, I guess soon to be wife at the time, but I got a call from my pastor one day. I'm the greatest pastor on planet Earth, Pastor Jared Pugh here at MBP Church. He is the best. If you're listening to this, you're the man. But I got the call one day. A couple of my best friends are on staff at the church right now, and I kind of was in this limbo, kind of between college and getting a job, and I just started serving in whatever capacity I could serve in at the church, and got the call one day that brother and sister Pugh wanted me to kind of help out with some social media stuff, some content creation, and so I did that for a while, and slowly over time it kind of morphed into hey, do you want to potentially be our content creator, and director of what's of everything content. And so I happily said yes. It wasn't something that at the moment I was necessarily, I don't want to say interested in, but I didn't think that it was a possibility. I've played drums my entire life, and that's what I did. I play music, but I accepted, and it was a super, super gracious offer for me to just be around that caliber of people and to do that day in and day out. And so that's morphed over time into now taking over everything content creative related, whether it's promo videos for our church or for other people, or social media graphics, graphic design, promotions, everything, just content creative related, getting recap videos and doing recap posts and stuff. It's such a blessing. I really, really enjoy doing it, and it's such a passion of mine. And it's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast too, is just to have an outlet on, your podcast streaming service that you can go to, and to have helpful tips or tricks to just help you be a better creator. And that is one of the goals as well, because at the end of the day, social media and anything content related, that is a ministry, and if God's put you, as the listener or watcher of this podcast, whatever you're watching it on, if you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if God has let you and graced you with the opportunity to do something creative in your church, it is absolutely a ministry, and it's one of the ministries that could have the most impact on your church's growth, on, seeing new faces in the building. A lot of the times, and I would venture to say majority of the time, a person that doesn't may not go to your church, or may not know truth, or may not have grown up in this thing, oftentimes, probably 100% of the time, they're going to check out a church's live stream, a church's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube account, website, all those things before they ever walk in the door. And so it puts a new level of meaning to being a creator, being a content creator, because there's so much responsibility involved in doing that, because you're really helping to push the kingdom forward. And one of the goals, there's many goals that we're shooting for on this podcast, but when it comes to life music ministry, that really covers a lot of what we're going to do. But being creative is a ministry, whether it's in daily life, whether it's through music, whether it's through being a content creator at your church, or someone who helps out with graphic design or promotional videos or recap videos, or just social media posts on social media platforms. All of those things matter, and being a creator, it matters, especially in the world we live in today, because sometimes you're going to be the first line of, offense, when you're trying to reach the world. And so, that's one of the goals on here, just to help you, to help push God's kingdom forward. And so I'm very, very excited to be talking, about some of those things. And we're going to dive into, some different series as we walk through this podcast. And we might have seasons dedicated to certain things and episodes dedicated to certain things, but some of it may be a little more stripped down and a little more unplugged, and while others it may be a little more formal, I guess, depending on what we're talking about, right? And so, in this, I really, really hope that you can get something that's going to encourage you. It's going to bless you. That's my hope for you as a listener or a watcher of this podcast. No matter what streaming service you watch this on, whether it's YouTube or, like I said, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whatever the case may be, my goal is just to you get something that encourages you, that blesses you, and that just keeps you informed on things to help you in trying to push God's kingdom forward. That is the goal. And so we're going to do a couple in-depth Bible studies on not only music, but on serving, on being a creative, on how do you keep yourself filled up while trying to pour into other people. All of those things are very, very important, especially in the world we live in today. I would venture to say, without getting too deep, that majority of the times it's content creators that they empty their cup week in and week out, week in and week out. And sometimes it's hard to fill that cup up because you're ministering so much, you're pouring so much into other people. And I know people who do content creation will understand exactly what I'm talking about, because there's a level of pouring that it's almost it's just built into that particular ministry. You're always pouring out, you're always creating, you're always looking for new ideas to help push the kingdom forward. But there also has to be a refilling. You can't minister out of an empty cup. And so my hope is that you'll get something that'll be able to minister to you as you're creating for your church, as you're going deeper into the presence of God. My goal is that you'll get something from this podcast that can help you to do that, that refills you, that recharges you, that gives you an encouraging word that tells you can keep going forward. God wants to help you. God never intended us for, us to be handed, the reins to a ministry that, we can never, control, or never, a handle. That's not God's will. It's little by little, but God wants to help you, and I'm super, super excited about what we're going to be diving into over the next few episodes. And I just wanted you to get familiar with who I am, where I come from, and where I would like this podcast to go. Now, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review. It would definitely help us to get this thing pushed forward, especially starting out. And this is the pilot episode. We will be having future episodes very, very, very soon. But I cannot wait to see you on the next episode or hear you listening. No matter if you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on your podcast streaming service. But thank you so much for tuning in. Super excited about the future. Can't wait to see you on Unplugged. I'm your host, Brent Lensing. I'll have a fantastic rest of your day.